This is CBC Here and Now.
My mother can still hear the bombing is constantly exploding. Her house is shaking. My sister is just crying constantly.
Worries about loved ones in Ukraine as Russia invades.
Residents try to flee or hide.
The latest on this developing story and reaction from those watching it unfold from here.
Well, it has certainly been windy, and we're finally going to see some relief from these winds over the next couple of days.
The issue of chronic homelessness in Happy Valley Goose Bay is apparent on the streets, on the trails, and in the homeless shelter. But for many people, the Labrador Inn is home. We'll bring you that story on Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We begin tonight with the story the world is watching. Russia has launched a full-scale assault on Ukraine, attacking by land, sea, and air. Troops have invaded Ukraine from the north, east, and south, sending thousands searching for safe shelter. Many have been crowding into cars and trains and heading to neighboring countries. Residents of the capital, Kiev, woke up to the sound of explosions and sirens. Similar scenes unfolded in other cities. This video is from the industrial city of Dnipro overnight. 250 kilometers to the north, fire crews scrambled to put out fires in a residential area today after Russian missiles landed. Russian military convoys have been rumbling through Crimea in the south, which Russia annexed in 2014 toward mainland Ukraine. This assault comes after weeks of fruitless diplomatic efforts to avoid armed conflict. A top official with the European Union has described the attack as, quote, the darkest hours in Europe since the Second World War. It's an especially anxious time for a Ukrainian woman in Harbor Grace. Nadia But-Velechko's family is home in Ukraine. Her mother lives near a major airport in Kiev, which is being bombarded with Russian airstrikes. For now, she says they're being told to stay home, and like many others, they have few options.
A lot of people were panicking and the roads were just blocked, and it was just staying, the traffic wasn't moving, so it wasn't nowhere to go. The airports and everything is closed, so they're hoping maybe in the morning everything will be different and they'll have more information. And right now they're staying at their houses and trying to stay safe.
Well, Brian Cherwick's family immigrated to Canada decades ago, now living in St. John's. He's the founder of the Ukrainian band Cubasonics. He tells Here and Now the invasion reaches far beyond Ukraine. It could have catastrophic repercussions for the rest of Europe.
A few hours ago, the president of Ukraine was on speaking to the country, saying that tanks are looking to attack the Chernobyl nuclear plant. If they blow up a nuclear reactor, you'll have the same problem that happened, in 1986 when that terrible tragedy happened. Then this means this is a war on all of Europe, because that radioactivity from that place will spread right across Europe.
Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland is calling out the Russian president directly, saying Vladimir Putin has, quote, cemented his place among the most reviled European dictators of the 20th century. She also had this to say.
To my own Ukrainian Canadian community, let me say this. Now is the time for us to be strong as we support our friends and family in Ukraine. Now is the time for us to remember Ще не вмерла Україна.
The Prime Minister called the invasion the greatest threat to European stability since the Second World War and announced a series of measures. Sanctions are being put in place against dozens of individuals and entities, including members of the Russian elite and major banks. Canada is also canceling all permits for exports to Russia. More than 3,000 Canadian troops have been put on standby to deploy for NATO operations if needed.
Well, if you're a close contact with someone who has COVID-19, you may now face fewer restrictions. At today's COVID briefing, the Chief Medical Officer of Health announced that many people can still go to work and school, even if someone in their house is sick with COVID.
As we reopen further, more people will inevitably be exposed to COVID-19, and repeated cycles of isolation will no doubt have an impact on mental health, families, workplaces, and the functioning of society as a whole.
So let's break down what this means. If someone in your household has COVID-19 and you're fully vaccinated and symptom-free, you can keep going to work or school, but otherwise you have to isolate, but just for 5 days. If a household contact isn't vaccinated, like a child under the age of 5, then they have to isolate for 7 days and get tested. That is shorter than the current 10 days of isolation. If it's a contact outside your household and you're vaccinated, you don't need to get a test. Just monitor for symptoms for 7 days after contact and wear a mask outside the house. And finally, if you're a contact and you do have symptoms, you will have to isolate until those symptoms resolve. So why these changes? Well, one reason is the strain on the healthcare system. Today, the health minister said more than 1,000 healthcare workers have been isolating, but only about 200 or so are actually sick. The others are contacts of people who are sick. So this will let a lot of them get back to work. But what does this do to the risk that healthcare workers might be more likely to pass on COVID to vulnerable patients? Dr. Janice Fitzgerald says there are precautions.
There's a risk of COVID, but then there's the risk of not getting the care that you need because we don't have enough workers to be able to provide that care. So, we've looked at this very carefully. The people who are household contacts are getting tested, so it's not without any precaution. So we are checking for COVID, and anybody obviously that tests positive is going to be in isolation. It's not completely just back to work without any checks.
So now, as restrictions are dropped, Dr. Fitzgerald says individuals will have to make their own assessment of their risks. But now the province is scaling back the COVID-19 information it provides. She says they'll move more to treating it like they do with flu, where they publish weekly reports.
We have to assume that COVID is anywhere and everywhere. And so knowing the exact number of cases in a day is not going to change that. We do need to take those precautions on a regular basis. And I think going forward, we will still be reporting those numbers. They're not going to go away completely. We're just not going to be doing it every day.
Well, today the province reported 17 people are in hospital. It also reported 287 new cases. Dr. Fitzgerald says there are signs that the amount of COVID in the community has increased.
Well, there is a road advisory in place for people traveling on the West Coast. The Trans-Canada Highway between Route 490 and Steel Mountain Road will be closed for a few days as culverts are being repaired. Steel Mountain Road was being used to bypass the TCH closure, but is now closed while crews work to remove 2 overturned transport trucks. Police say there are no other detours available. Just have a look at this. I mentioned overturned transport trucks. One of those 18-wheelers hit a house in St. George's, but incredibly, the sleeping family inside was unharmed. It was a harrowing experience for homeowner Emily St. Jean Hawkins, who was woken up just before 4 a.m., but not by the truck.
CMP officer was banging on the door, and we sleep with our room door closed, and our dog was the one that woke us up with the banging. And she asked if we were all okay, and I said, why? And she said, well, she said, an 18-wheeler hit your house. And I said, what? She said, there's an 18-wheeler attached to your house at the corner.
Well, we definitely saw some slippery conditions earlier today. That is thanks to the cool down that we saw from the temperatures dramatically dropping through the afternoon, or rather through the night last night and then today as well. That area of low pressure has moved off. Still seeing some really windy conditions, though, across most of the island and up across Labrador as well, with all that cold air funneling in. There's a look at some of the numbers for today. Gusts upwards of about 96 kilometers per hour for St. John's, 81 in Gander. And if we take a look at what we saw today, those numbers dropped temperature-wise down to about -6. So we are going to see these winds eventually ease as we head through the night tonight and then continue through tomorrow. I'll have the full forecast coming up.
Last night, we brought you the stories of Frederica Benwin and Lukey Karpik, two people who died outdoors overnight 6 weeks apart in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Both were precariously housed. Tonight, we examined the largest shelter in Labrador that isn't a shelter at all. It's just a hotel, one that's become a stopgap in a system overburdened and overcapacity. Here Now's Ariana Kelland takes us to the Labrador Inn.
Joseph Piogi isn't impeded by a slight limp, one left by a harrowing experience decades earlier. He was 19 and Piogi got disoriented on the land off Nain. He was missing for 11 days. So long, in fact, his family held a memorial service for him.
I think they buried me, but I wasn't dead. But I came back, and I guess it wasn't my time to go. Yeah, because I always relied on hope.
He's never lost hope, but he is missing something from the ordeal.
I only got 6 toes right now, but that's all right. Yeah.
That optimism was hard to keep up. Piogi moved to Happy Valley Goose Bay decades ago. His addiction to alcohol, one he says is rooted in an unstable childhood, came with him.
I was homeless for a while. And then, like, ending up on the streets and sleeping in the woods or couch surfing or whatever. And sleeping outdoors wasn't fun.
And he lived that way up until 2 years ago, at the age of 49.
I went from being homeless, now I got an apartment and working, and it's a big difference. When you become sober, it's different. But when you're drinking, it's like you're lost and hopeless and useless, and you just don't know what to think.
At the Labrador Inn, residents are bound by struggle and circumstance. Some are there on a last chance, others see it as a step up from the official shelter in town. But for all, the future is uncertain. The Labrador Inn houses about 20 people per night. Sometimes more, sometimes less. It started around 2 years ago when the housing hub became too overcrowded. The province reached out to the inn and a wing was set aside for people precariously housed. The private hotel receives at least $450,000 a year from the province to provide food and shelter, but that's it. Unlike the housing hub, no one on staff is trained to deal with trauma, addictions, and violence. Employees are hospitality workers.
They have so many questions that are being unanswered up here. I try to guide them the best I can, but there's only so much I can say or do. So it's like we need more people. There's more services that need to be provided.
Like Joseph, Lindsay Budgell says her own experience gives her insight some don't have. She too has struggled with addiction. Budgell works at the inn and says she knows what residents need and that they're not getting it.
I don't want to leave you with the impression that the folks that are housed at the Lab Inn don't have other support services in place. So they may have been sleeping their heads in beds, but the supports that the hub receive and the increasing list that we have of wraparound supports, certainly they avail of them as well.
But they're not going to walk to the hub. I mean, if it's minus 40, can you imagine someone who is sitting up here intoxicated? Which 9 chances out of they are, because that's when you want help the most, is when you're coming down off of whatever, you had taken, whatever substance, and then they're looking for help. If it's not here in the building, they're not going to call a cab that they can't pay for. They're not going to call someone and wait for a ride.
We got to up our game, there's no doubt about that.
John Abbott visited the Labrador Inn a few days after CBC requested an interview, while he was in town for a funding announcement. Without going into specifics, Abbott said he'll make sure resources like security are in place to improve operations.
But up until this point where you're adding extra security, people have been at the Labrador Inn without security, without these services for 2 years. How has that been allowed to happen for that amount of time? How can the largest shelter in Labrador be a hotel run by people who are hotel managers and hotel staff?
Well, I think that's one of the, again, as the Minister said, this is the thing that we've learned that, yeah, we just can't let that continue to happen. So I'm certainly convinced that it shouldn't and it won't on a go-forward basis.
Ariana Kelland, CBC News, Happy Valley Goose Bay.
Well, we heard from many of you last night after our mistake when we misidentified Johannes Lamp, the president of Nunatsiavut.
Lamp was speaking about a project between Parks Canada and the Nunatsiavut government in Labrador to study the feasibility of a national marine conservation area near Nain.
They're looking to protect an area 3 times the size of Prince Edward Island on the Labrador Marine Shelf that's home to many species of marine life, including beluga whales, seals, seabirds, and fish.
This is an opportunity for Inuit to determine what they want protected and how, while maintaining our traditional practices and our way of life.
Now, while Lamp was speaking on the program last night, he was misidentified. Once again, we apologize for the error.
CBC Investigates is taking us to the West Coast, where there's hope the Stephenville airport will be reinvigorated. New flights, thousands of jobs, a planned investment of $200 million. So our CBC Investigates team decided to check out some of the claims being made there by the company looking to take over. Here now's Colleen Connors has the details.
A month into the new year, and this place is still quiet. No flights, no movement. The lights are off. Carl Diamond has made big promises of big things to come here, but a deadline to close the deal has come and gone. There is still no final decision from the Stephenville Airport Authority, and neither side is talking right now. A contrast from 5 months ago.
What we're putting together here for this town, for this region, for this province, I think is going to be a game changer in every way, shape, and form.
His plans to turn the airport into a major enterprise, a manufacturing facility for cargo drones and thousands of jobs, all without government support.
We're also not asking for any financial resources at all from the town of Stephenville, from the area, from the province. We want to be able to do this with our money. I think putting our money into it is showing that we're serious about what we're looking to do.
But there has been little visible progress to date. And now some questions around Diamond's comments, promises, and business proposals. A key component of the Diamond Group's pitch for Stephenville is the creation of a drone manufacturing facility. Not the drones you can hold in your hand. He says his drones are the size of a Herc airplane.
Our drones are some of the biggest in the world.
They do not exist right now, but Diamond says they will be flying by 2025. He says he's working with Transport Canada, but the division responsible for all drones in the country says it's not aware of any applications. Diamond says they want to deliver food and supplies to Canada's north and are looking to possibly even run the airports up there.
So we're working with governments up north now to look at the airports in Cambridge Bay, Resolute Bay, Arctic Bay.
CBC reached out to officials in the territory to find out more. And they said there have been no discussions or plans made between Nunavut Airports and the Diamond Group. Another key, the return of scheduled passenger service here.
We've still been negotiating with the airlines. We have a couple that are coming on with us. Our goal is to, between April and June, is to have these airlines coming into the new terminal being built using the existing terminal.
CBC contacted Air Canada, WestJet, PAL. None are coming back. Sunwing has a weekly flight to Toronto slated to run this summer. The same as announced last year, but there's little detail on those plans. And Porter Airlines is not clear on its summer routes. Diamond stresses that they have been in talks with almost every single airline in Canada. It's been decades since the heyday of the Stephenville Airport, when the Americans had a base here. Last September's announcement brought hopes for the return of those good times. Hopes that are still on hold right now. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Stephenville.
Meanwhile, the provincial government is stressing that it is not playing an active role in this process and says it is very much hands-off at this point.
We are obviously supportive of anybody that wants to be in this province, wants to invest, that wants to develop. But again, we haven't been, I guess, a part of that. It's very much been a contract between the private entity as well as the Stephenville Airport Corporation, and we haven't been asked for money.
Well, if you want to read more on this story, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/nl. A barber shop in downtown St. John's is facing an unexpected setback, and no, it's not related to the pandemic. Fogtown is downsizing, but it's only temporary. It's because a car recently rammed into the side of its historic building, and that's forced the barbers to move into an adjacent, much smaller space. But according to Chris Evans, the community has already come out to show its support.
So we had a pretty big whoopsie here. We had a vehicle sort of take this corner from Water Street onto Prescott. Kind of a pedestrian avoidance situation, ended up running into the building. That's a brick wall. It's from 1893, so it's some old brick, really not designed for any type of impact like that. And given its age, the impact really did some damage. Interior, we lost some things on the wall, just minor stuff like mirrors and decorations, but the wall really got compromised. Well, because there's some structural issues, I guess it does need to get approved at City Hall for the work. I'm not exactly sure how that works. I just know that there's been no movement today. So a day lost on repair, it really hurts us because we're not working. So that's why we're going to get our barbershop out of its sort of big space in the building and into what used to be our clothing store, into the side shop, kind of where the barbershop began 10 years ago. Basically, we needed to blow out the merchandise so we didn't have to move it and store it. We don't have tons of storage space, and it's better just sold at essentially a wholesale cost than put into the basement and have it, risking it getting dirty or not fresh. So we had a huge sale. Support was massive. We had, I think, a transaction essentially every minute or two for the whole sale, which was 2 days. People came out and really supported, gives us a little injection of cash, so it allows us to sort of breathe a little bit while we're not working. So it's been a rough couple of years for a lot of reasons, and just as things sort of seem like they're going to open up and maybe we can get back to what things used to be, this kind of took the wind out of our sails a little bit. 2 years ago we had 6 chairs. We downsized to 5 to allow for social distancing, and now we're down to 3 because that's the max we can fit in that space. It's going to get fixed up, and then it's going to need to be painted. This color, not the prettiest. We could do better than that. If there's somebody out there who knows how to get a nice big, full wall size come home year mural on that wall, knows how to access funding, the artist for the job, I would love to see it right here, predominant location, downtown St. John's, come home here.
Well, the cold air has certainly moved back in. Looks like a cold couple of days on tap as well. I'll have the full forecast coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
It's nice to have you back in the studio. Welcome back.
Yes, it's been a long time.
It has, it has. And I was out for a walk early this morning. I could not get over how warm it was. It was like 6 degrees. There was no snow on the ground. And I was wondering what month we were in.
I know, certainly. And I bet you lots of people thought that last night, especially in and around Bonavista North, when you heard some rumbles of thunder overnight last night. Yeah. So we certainly saw some warm temperatures and certainly saw that big drop. Let's take a look at what we're seeing right now. The 24-hour temperature change. Remember yesterday we were talking about 20 to 22 degrees warmer? Well, now it's 9 to 15 degrees colder than it was sitting there yesterday. So temperatures are currently sitting in the minus single digits, -6 in St. John's, numbers up across Labrador, -22 in Makkovik right now. And we're going to see this cold air continue. We're seeing this Arctic air mass bringing all of that cold air in, and it's going to stick around for a little while. At least the cold temperatures will stick around for a little while. So taking a look at the winds right now, that's the other story this afternoon. Winds gusting right now about 57 kilometers per hour in St. John, similar in Bonavista, and finally starting to see those winds ease up across southeastern Labrador as well. Cartwright right now at 33 kilometers per hour. A bit more of a gust though for you, around 56 kilometers per hour. And you're seeing Cape Ray, St. John's and Bonavista all in the 70 kilometer per hour wind gusts. So that is leading to a pretty significant wind chill out there. -17 is what it's feeling like in St. John's. Same thing as you head towards Corner Brook, feeling more like -16, and then Labrador again feeling more like -34 in Lab City right now. So temperatures tonight are actually going to dip quite again up across Labrador into the -20s, -30 in Lab City, and those temperatures for the Northern Peninsula as well into the -20s as we head through the night tonight. There is an extreme cold warning in place as well. Northern portion of Labrador, same thing with Lab West, and then the Northern Peninsula. You're looking at your wind chill values tonight for the Northern Peninsula into the -30s and then into the mid-40s for Labrador, Makkovik, Nain, and Lab City. That's where you're going to sit. But you can see those wind chills tonight even and into the early morning hours across the island. Still pretty chilly as well, feeling more like -23 when you leave tomorrow morning in Gander. So definitely going to see some of this cold air stick around. The weather, not too much though. We're still going to see the potential for some flurries along the west coast as we head through the overnight tonight. Potentially even the northern Avalon as well. We could see that risk of flurries. Otherwise, not a whole lot going on, and the winds will finally ease somewhere between 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. Still brisk, but much less windy than what we saw today. And then as we head through the day tomorrow, the flurry potential will continue mainly along the west coast. Same thing for southern areas of the island. And then other than that, not a whole lot going on. We will see the clouds on the increase though as we get towards the evening hours. And then it does look like a system will skirt just south of the province, and that is going to bring the potential for some snow for the Burin Peninsula as well as the Avalon as we head through the overnight hours into the first half of Saturday. Moves pretty quickly. Doesn't look like we're going to see too much in the way of accumulation, maybe 5 to 10 centimeters, but at this point that's about it. So forecast for tomorrow as far as temperatures go, we're going to hang on to the minus single digits with a bit of a wind as well. So between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour out of the west. That means we will see a bit of a wind chill like I mentioned a little bit earlier, but lots of sunshine as you head towards central, maybe a few flurries in the mix, nothing too significant. And then the west coast keeping you cloudy with that onshore flurry activity continuing. -10 for Corner Brook, -8 in Stephenville and Humber Valley. You're looking at your temperature in and around -12. Now those cooler temperatures going to stick around for Labrador or Northern Peninsula as well. St. Anthony -17, Mary's Harbour -19 with those winds out of the west between 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. And then overall sunshine, but a little bit unsettled for Lab City, -23 through the day, and those winds out of the west between 20 to 30 kilometers per hour. So Friday night and Saturday, a little bit of snow, and then we'll look at the rest of the forecast when I come back.
Well, now back to our top story, one that's captured the attention of people right around the globe. Russian forces have invaded Ukraine. We're hearing reports of missile strikes, civilians scrambling for safety. Our Prime Minister and other world leaders are condemning this attack. Here in this province, those with ties to Ukraine, like the rest of us, can only watch as it unfolds. Joining me now is Nadia But-Velechko, who is from Ukraine but now lives in Harbor Grace. Nadia, I'm so sorry for what your country is going through today. How are you feeling?
I'm terrified, feeling under a lot of stress, and it's just helpless. I'm feeling that I would like to be able to do more for Ukraine and for my family. It's really not easy times right now.
And I know that you moved here to be with your husband, but can you tell me what family members you have back in Ukraine?
Yes, I still have my parents in Ukraine and my sister, her family, her husband, and my niece. She's 6 years old right now. And my extended family, my uncles, my cousins, my friends.
So a lot of family and friends there right now. Have you been speaking with any of them? What have they been telling you about what's happening?
Well, I actually just came up talking to my mom and my sister. I have been speaking to them since this morning, 1 a.m. My mother is right now, unfortunately, is right in the middle of the bombing. She's living near Kiev region. It's near the airport, Hostomel airport. It's the most important and biggest airport. And it's right now, unfortunately, a Russian army is attacking it, airstrikes and paratroopers was dropped off. And my mother can still hear the bombing is constantly exploding. Her house is shaking. My sister is just crying constantly. She can't sleep. It's terrifying. They're constantly on the phone with me. I'm trying to keep them calm and trying to tell them everything will be okay, and we're trying to do everything to help them and praying for them.
How difficult is that for you to try to reassure them to be this far away from home and trying to reassure your family when they're in this volatile situation, this dangerous situation?
It's terrifying, and I'm constantly running all kinds of ideas, scripts from my mind. If I would do this, could I help earlier? Could be anything done? I don't know. It's really hard not to cry when you're seeing them and just being strong for them. It's been really stressful, and it's hard for my own mental health for sure.
Do you know what their plans are? Are they just going to hunker down for now and see what happens?
Right now, it's officials warned citizens to stay home and don't leave. It was a lot of people were panicking, and the roads were just blocked, and it was just staying. The traffic wasn't moving, so it wasn't nowhere to go. The airports and everything is closed, so they're hoping maybe in the morning everything will be different and they will have more information. And right now they're staying at their houses and trying to stay safe.
I know that you say that you feel helpless being this far away from your family while all of this is happening, but is there anything that you can do to help?
First of all, I called today Immigration and Refugee and Citizenship department, but unfortunately Canada doesn't have anything in place yet for refugees. I'm trying to raise awareness, obviously speaking to you, hoping to bring attention to the rest of the world, and it's all what I can do for now.
What is your message for everyone who's watching their TV screens and just watching all of this unfold today?
We're hoping for help. We're praying for help and asking for help. Ukraine will fight to the last soldier trying to defend their land, families, and children, but we can't do it alone. We need help. We need Canadian help. We need United States. We need the NATO. We need the rest of the world to stand with Ukraine. We also need military help. We do need you. We can't stand alone for a long time.
Nadia Velechko, I hope that your family stays safe over there. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much.
We're going to speak now with someone in St. John's. He's well known in the local Ukrainian community. You might know Brian Cherwick as the founder of the local Ukrainian band Cubasonics. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Well, today was a turning point. The fear of a possible Russian attack has become a reality. What does this attack mean for you personally?
First of all, we're just really terrified for our family members, for our friends that are in Ukraine. It's really unpredictable how far and how wide this is going to expand. From Mr. Putin's statements that he made, early in the morning yesterday, saying he's on a peacekeeping mission in a small province in the east. We see that did not come out to be true, and there's been, attacks right across the entire territory of Ukraine.
And I know that your grandparents immigrated to Canada many years ago, but can you talk a bit about the connection that you have with your Ukrainian roots and how it feels for you to see your family's homeland in such turmoil right now?
Well, I mean, when my grandparents, it's my great-grandparents actually that came here. My grandparents were small kids when they arrived in Canada. They were leaving harsh economic conditions, harsh political conditions. And then, soon after they arrived in Canada, the Second World War broke out. And then the part of Ukraine that they're from got swallowed into the Soviet Union. And so then they were cut off from their families for almost 50 years, with very little contact with them. For us, Ukraine seemed like a mythical kind of place, but mythical and unattainable, or it was difficult for Canadians even to travel there for a long time. And as a result, Ukrainians in the diaspora all over the world, in Canada and other countries, felt that they had a particular kind of mission to keep Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian traditions, all of those things, even in a place that's far away from Ukraine. We should be doing that to show that it's a vibrant culture, it's an important culture, and that kind of thing.
And you've been, showing your support for Ukraine. You held a rally recently down in front of St. John's City Hall. What are your plans now? Like, when we finish this interview and you go on about your day, how will you be spending your days?
Well, we're actually thinking about holding another little rally if possible, because the first time was when there was just sort of nebulous kind of ideas about there might be some kind of attack. This has now become, it's bigger than just the Ukraine question. Like, this is a question of, does the rule of law, the way that countries interact with each other, is that important anymore? Do we believe in that? Obviously, Mr. Putin doesn't. But, I think Canadians as a whole, we do. And so hopefully, we'll be posting on social media when that rally is going to happen. And hopefully people will come out and join us.
Yeah, the ripple effect of all of this will be huge. Well, good luck with the rally. We'll be looking for those details if that goes ahead. Brian Cherwick, thank you so much for this.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Well, Justin Trudeau says Russia's attack on Ukraine is an attack on democracy, international law, human rights, and freedom.
Russia's actions stand in direct opposition to the democratic principles that generations of Canadians have fought to protect. Democracies and democratic leaders everywhere must come together to defend these principles and stand firmly against authoritarianism.
Trudeau is calling on Russia to immediately cease all hostile actions and withdrawal from Ukraine.
A new exhibition at the Rooms is celebrating one of the largest and most significant donations of art in the province's history.
Yeah, nearly 400 prints by more than 70 Inuit artists have been gifted to the Rooms by William Ritchie, an artist and master printmaker who worked for 30 years at the Knight Studio in Nunavut.
The collection captures a vital chapter in Canadian art history, a chapter that Ritchie helped to write. Here now, Zach Gowdy has more.
The exhibit has just opened, but this VIP can give the guided tour himself.
It's a beautiful space.
Bill Ritchie knows these artworks down to the brush line. His hands helped create them. Now he's giving them, all 400 of them, to the Rooms.
It's beautiful to see them again. They're like old friends.
Have you ever seen so many of them displayed at once?
No, I never have. Never.
Ritchie is a celebrated visual artist himself, but this collection is drawn from his 30-year career as a printmaker at King Knight Studios in King Knight, Nunavut, formerly known as Cape Dorset. Hundreds of prints, dozens of artists, including some of the Inuit art world's biggest names.
This is a truly special donation in the history of the rooms. It's one of the largest donations we've received and very significant. It's significant in terms of Canadian art history.
For Richie, that history began in 1988 when he began working at King Knight Studios, a historic and renowned printmaking shop. It was a time when the studio was going through big changes.
There was artists doing all kinds of stuff, but the only artists that were being purchased for use in the collections was very much more conservative Inuit style art.
Richie wasn't interested in more of the same. As a printmaker, he chose works from artists that he saw pushing boundaries.
I always said to people, draw what you know. Do what you know. Do what's in your life. Do what's in your mind. Do what you're thinking about. Do whatever you want. There's no rules anymore.
That creative and commercial license fostered a thriving community of artists. Annie Pudaguk, Tim Pitchulok, Pudlo Pidlet, and Kenojuak Ashevik produced works at the studio that would make them household names in the art world. But while their prints were flying off the walls at Toronto galleries, Richie got to keep a copy of every print he worked on.
For me, I put them in a tube and I put them under my bed. And I thought to myself, you know, when I get done this will be my RRSP. But it went on and on and on. 30 years this went on. And these tubes eclipsed my bed space. They got put into the attic.
When Richie finally retired from the studio and moved back to Newfoundland full-time, he got around to opening those tubes and changed his mind about what to do with them.
And I didn't like the idea of putting things on eBay. So I thought the best thing to do with this is to give it to the rooms as a thank you for the community that fostered me for so many years.
The first exhibition drawn from the collection is called Helping Hands, a nod to the many hands it takes to bring a print from an idea to something that hangs on a wall. It was curated by Nakasuk Alariak, a graduate student and writer who grew up in King Knight.
There's always a story being told. Sometimes it's about Inuit culture, or maybe it's just a story about the community. And I wanted to kind of focus on those little moments and those cultural aspects while also highlighting an artist's key signature or something that they were really good at, or maybe also a printmaker was really good at this one technical skill, and I wanted to highlight that as well. So it kind of gets people thinking about the lives and the story of not only the artist, but the artwork.
Thanks, all the fuel for the winter.
For Richie, these artworks are also a life's work. Each one is a story that isn't his, but that his hands helped bring to life.
Well, as many artworks, there are varied experiences. Even in a small community of 200 people, everybody brought something new to their art. Everybody had something specific to say, so that all of us could understand a little bit more about who Inuit people are.
Zach Gowdy, CBC News, St. John's.
And following tonight's show, you can head to the CBCNL Facebook page for a special live conversation about this exhibit at the Rooms.
The curator, who you just heard from in that piece, will walk you through those amazing artworks and will take questions from you. That's on Facebook. It starts right after Here and Now, so less than 10 minutes, 7 o'clock Island time, 6:30 in most of Labrador.
Well, we've been seeing lots of rain over February, January as well, but it does look like we're in a little bit of a cold pattern now, and that means we're going to see some snow potentially Friday night into Saturday morning. So taking a look at the future tracker, that system will track south. It looks like we could see some light or moderate snow as we head through the overnight into Saturday morning. It moves through fairly quickly, but it does look like it'll just mainly affect the Avalon and the Burin Peninsula. Otherwise, not a whole lot going on across the province. Now, temperatures on Saturday will sit in the minus single digits, so they're not going to move too much. Minus double digits as you head towards the west coast. Same thing for the Northern Peninsula, and then up across Labrador into the minus teens, minus 21 in Lab City. So snowfall amounts that we're talking about, this takes us through to Saturday morning. Like I said, it'll move through fairly quickly. We're looking at about 5 to 10 centimeters, potentially southeastern portions of the island, or rather the Avalon may see somewhere between 10 to 15 centimeters. Definitely going to keep an eye on that one. But as we head through Sunday morning, that, like I said, that system moves through fairly quickly. As we look at Sunday morning, the potential for some flurries will stick around for the west coast as well as the Northern Peninsula, and a few flurries across Labrador as well. And then it does look like some more snow or light snow will move in Sunday evening and then continue through the overnight into early Monday. So temperatures again on the minus or below zero, anywhere from -2 to -4, is starting to warm up a little bit for the Northern Peninsula, and then a bit of a warm up as well, relatively speaking, for Labrador. So Happy Valley Goose Bay sitting around -10 through the day on Sunday. Now, looking ahead after that, generally staying in this cold pattern, but does look like Monday we could flirt with 0, maybe a degree or 2 above, hovering around 1 degree, -5 by the time we get into Tuesday, with that potential for a few flurries as well. And then as we look towards the central areas of the island, flurry activity right through Monday. Tuesday looks like the potential for some sunshine and hovering around -10, and then flurries the story for Western Labrador, likely onshore flurries for you, hovering around -10 by the time we get to Tuesday. Taking a look at Eastern Labrador, flurries or light snow right through Monday, temperatures in the -teens, and then back to the -20s for Western Labrador, with the potential for some flurries through Tuesday. Take a look at this shot. Scott shared this photo of Isle of Mort. A lovely day there. Thank you for that. If you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
So nice to have blue sky.
Yes, I love the purple and the yellow too.
All the colors.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Scott. Well, tomorrow's Friday.
Yes.
That's a good thing. And it looks like some decent weather heading into the weekend tomorrow.
Yeah, especially if you like some snow, we'll finally see a little bit of a blanket of snow, it looks like.
It's good if you have dogs, it's good for their paws, all those muddy paws out there.
And this time, at least, it won't be followed immediately by a big warm-up and a pile of rain, which has been the usual pattern, at least in eastern Newfoundland this winter.
Yeah, it's looking like March is potentially going to be a little bit colder, so
okay,
it's good.
All right, well, that's it for us, everyone. I hope you can join us again tomorrow evening.
Have a good night.
Good night.